Welcome to another episode of What Am I Doing With My Life with me, your host, Alyssa Desai. Do you ever sit there just thinking, oh, what am I doing with my life? Well, this is the podcast for you. Each episode normalizes not having it all figured out and gives you actionable tips when you feel stuck, lost, and overwhelmed by life. I'm going to be joined by some incredible guests, and I'm going to be giving you some tips and some solo episodes to really help you wherever you are in your journey right now. Today, I'm joined by the incredible Teresa. Let's dive straight into her journey.
Hi, Teresa. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
Hi, Alyssa. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very well.
Good.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. So, I would love you to introduce yourself and just get us started. Tell me about your journey to where you got to today.
Okay, yeah, big question. I'm a brand consultant and creative director working with purpose-led brands. So essentially that means that I'll work with anyone who wants to create a positive impact somehow through their work and their business. Prior to that, I was full-time head of design at the Financial Times for the last 7 years. I started my studio as a side hustle after the pandemic because I really needed to find a bit more purpose and align myself with my clients and my creative work. So yeah, I dipped my toes in with a side hustle, and in May 2023, for full transparency, I was burning out, and that was when I quit my full time, and here I am.
I'm excited. There's so much I want to delve into, but I want to go like way back to university. Like, what did you study at university, and did you enjoy it? How did you find uni?
That's a great question. So to go way back, I've always been like an arty kid. However, I come from a very academic background. My parents, my dad's a doctor, my mum's an economist. So art was never considered a career in my household. It was always a hobby that we do. So when I was picking my degree, I really was conscious that I had to make use. I was always quite good at school as well, academically. So I was like, I need to go for something that's like with substance, and, maybe academia is for me. Well, didn't that turn out?
I love the thing of like, I need to go for something for substance, and it's just such an interesting, like, the way that we view things. But yeah,
completely.
You can carry on.
Yeah, through the lenses of your family,
exactly,
isn't it? It's like you're really kind of that. It's incredible the weight that that has in you, and especially when you're like 17, 18, that's like all you know.
Yeah.
So I picked this degree, it was interesting. I met lovely people. However, in my last year, I was having a very early midlife crisis.
What I'm realising is it just normal in your life to have about 10 midlife crises by the time you're 30?
No. By the time I was 30, I felt like I was middle-aged, because I was like, yeah, I've got it figured out, I think. So in my last year at uni, I decided to pursue something arty so in the evenings I joined an illustration class, and then I was like, okay, how can I marry the archaeology with visual communication, because that was always sort of what I really loved, and I found this master's degree here in the UK, in Swindon, but it's like by University of Bath. And I was like, this is perfect. This is a master's in archaeological illustration. I'll go there and, marry the two together, and manage to like build up a portfolio in that illustration class. Then I got accepted in the master's, and moved to the UK as soon as I finished my degree. And that was the best decision I've ever made. Because coming to the UK was amazing, because it really showed me that I could have a creative career. Whilst in Portugal, it's not so much so. I mean, you can, but it's always very underpaid unless you work for, big banking institutions or, tech or pharmaceuticals. So, which was not my bag. So, going back to so I finished my MA, moved to London, and started working with any kind of like graphic design stuff that I could find, because in my master's I essentially like specialized myself in museum graphic design, so designing wayfinding, signage, the marketing stuff, and kind of like the communicating of history through visuals, and that was how I moved to London. And then moving on from that, I've had every single career that you can not career, but part-time job that you can possibly imagine: catering, pubs, handing out flyers. I worked in a vintage store for a long time as well, whilst I was building up my portfolio. And finally, I got my first full-time as a digital designer in a charity, Diabetes UK. And then I stayed there for a couple of years, then moved on to a startup, and that was really useful. And then I got poached by a HR recruiter to apply to this job at the FT, and I joined as a senior designer. A year into it, I got promoted to head of design, and that's kind of like
history.
Yeah.
I'm so curious about how your parents felt when you started to go into a more kind of creative career.
That's a great question. I think so. They were quite supportive, because I think they could tell that I was in my element in my degree. I was always like quite a good student at school, A levels, GCSEs, all that stuff. And when I got to archaeology, my grades kind of went down to like, still above average, but it wasn't, the kind of performance that they had seen from me before. So I think they knew deep down inside that I wasn't very happy with archaeology, and that wasn't my calling. Mm-hmm. So I think they were supportive, but I know they had mixed feelings. They, until I kind of like proved myself.
Yeah. And even despite that though, you pursued what you wanted to pursue. And I think I speak to so many people who really are trying to navigate that, where there is a set career path for them or life that is kind of expected of them from their parents, yet they want to do something completely different. And they find that really kind of difficult to navigate. And I guess even though you're saying, your parents did understand maybe archaeology wasn't for you, you still went and did what you wanted to do. And what do you think kind of supported you to go, I'm just going to do what I want to do and have the career that I want to have?
Oh, that's a great question. I think deep down inside, I just had like a massive intuition pang that was what I had to do. So I knew that I was always meant to be in a creative role and in doing something creative. I knew that deep inside. I started realizing that with, kind of like embodying that when I started doing these classes in the evening, these illustration classes. I was like, the feeling I have in my body when I'm in these classes and when I'm drawing and when I'm, making images is what I want to be having. So I think going into the illustration, once you start doing I guess some people learn different ways. My way of learning has always been, will always be, I'll bang my head against a massive brick wall, realize that what I was doing was wrong, and then kind of like have to recalibrate and go and explore certain things. And then with that exploration, then I feel it inside, like my intuition tells me this is where you should be and this is what you should be doing. So this is my way. Of course, everyone's got their own.
I love that. I love that so much, because I think there's often so much stuff we see on social media around like follow your intuition and like let it guide you. is there something that you can help people, almost like how you connect your intuition that might help other people connect to their intuition a little bit more?
Yeah. So there's so many tools, and I think I'm still on that journey of really kind of realizing when it's talking to me and when I need to listen and when I need to stop. But journaling is always a good way of doing any kind of like self-discovery discipline that nurtures you and nourishes you, and, you know, self-care, that side of things. So those are tools that will make you, I guess, be in the best place to be able to listen to those things that your intuition is telling you. I guess it might be a really personal thing, but for me, I feel it as a sense of relief almost when I start doing the right thing. So it's almost a contrast to, you know, in this case when, you know, through archaeology, I was like slugging it for at the time it was 4 years. The BA was 4 years in Portugal. It was before the Bologna Treaty in Europe. So I was slugging it for 4 years, and I was like, oh God, yeah, no, this is fine. This is just what adult life is like. Here we go. And then as soon as I started doing the illustration classes, I was like, oh my God, this feels different. Like I feel happy. Like I feel like myself. I think that's it. I think you start feeling comfortable with yourself again. So for me, that's how I know, oh, hang on, this is my intuition telling me this. I need to pursue this, no matter what. And that, you know, sometimes is going to tell your parents, you know, this degree I've been doing, not for me. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm having now flashbacks to like telling my mum that I'm going to become a coach. And I think what you said really resonated with me, like that feeling of just like, this feels so right. And I know when I've made decisions about my career and my life, even when it's felt scary, when it's just that like inner feeling of this is what I'm meant to do. Like I definitely know when I was thinking about starting my master's, I was umming and like I was really annoying myself. And I don't know whether you ever get like this, but I get to those points sometimes when I'm trying to make a decision about my life, and I've been in these various points in my life, you know, when it's like, should I leave this job or not? Or should I start this job or whatever it is? And I kept on thinking, should I start the master's this year or next year? Should I start the master's this year or next year? And I just, when I kind of am putting so much pressure on a decision, like it's like I'm going around in a hamster wheel in my head, and it's just constantly flip-flopping to this, no, this, no, this, no, this. And it was actually, I did a breathwork session. I just said, okay, just give me some guidance, like clarity around whether I should start it this year or next year. And then when I was kind of coming out of the breathwork session, just this voice came into my head, and it was like, just start it. Like there's never going to be a right time. And as soon as I felt that, I just felt so much relief. And I was like, oh, yeah, you know, It just took the pressure off. And I definitely, you know, when I'm trying to make sometimes decisions about what to do, trying to give myself a bit more headspace. And I love journaling, exactly like you said, because I think whenever we're stuck in that position of like, should I do this, should I do that, and just going around and round and round and round, it kind of creates more energy around not knowing and more energy around uncertainty, I think.
Absolutely. And then you put yourself in this pressure to like make a decision, and when sometimes you need to wait for the decision, you don't need to make it, you need to wait for it, isn't it?
Yeah. And the waiting's awful. Yeah. And it's like, I just want to know now. Yeah. It is tiring. What have you had any moments when you just thought, oh, I just feel so stuck, I just feel so lost, I don't know what I'm doing in my life?
Oh my gosh, so many. I mean, so many. As I was saying, that's how I learn. So I almost need to like go rock bottom to come back up and to go and explore other things. But yeah, this one was a very difficult decision to make, kind of like leaving the country, unknown. Then after that, it was quite easy. It was obvious that I had to come to London to make my career. But there's been so many moments where I was like, what am I doing in my life? As I said, I worked a lot of part-time jobs. And whilst you're in the first couple of years, so this was like just after the first recession, the 2008 recession. So the job market was insane, as you can imagine. And, I didn't have a network when I moved to London. I mean, I had a couple of friends, other Portuguese friends, but no, as you can imagine, it was a tiny sort of niche. Not many people, everyone was on the same boat, where we were working these part-time jobs to get us through. And we all wanted to like do something creative or, kind of kickstart our careers. And when you're working these jobs that have nothing to do with what you want to be doing, that's like another tough, it's almost like a daily grind where you're like, oh my God, is this it? Like, will I ever make it? Will I ever be able to sustain myself and make what I like a career? So yeah, plenty of moments. What am I doing with my life? In pubs and, when you're putting up with stuff that you're like, oh my God, I really don't need this. But I think that's all like character building as well. Because you almost need to, I think if you get too happy, not too happy, that's the wrong word, but if you get too comfortable, you get complacent, and then like you stop evolving and you stop learning, and you're just like, oh, I just know everything I want. And I think that's not how my mind works. I'm always like curious to know more and curious to find out what's going on, and like, always chasing innovation, chasing tech, chasing what's the right thing to be doing. And I don't know, I just like living my life like that. So I live my life with all those moments of like, what am I doing with my life all the time? But now I kind of love them.
I love that. I love that. And they kind of motivate you to learn more, get more curious. And
yeah, they totally push me out of my comfort zone. So I started my studio as a side hustle, as I said before. And that was because I made a promise to myself. So I spent 7 years in this cushy job in the Financial Times. It was lovely. I mean, it was so nice. You kind of you're working for a nice company. Everyone's really lovely. I was really enjoying like leading and building teams and, doing all that kind of work that they do. But I was incredibly like comfortable, So when I started the side hustle, I was like, okay, one promise that I make myself is that every day I need to do something that gets me out of the comfort zone and that gets me scared. And, because I was just like, I was in a rut. I was bored. I was boring myself. I was getting like really negative about everything because it's just like, it's just like, you just like start focusing on exterior things rather than internal things, isn't it? So I was like, no, let's try and do this. And since then, my life has really changed, and it's just been like, yeah, a ride in a good way.
So many things that made me think of. And yeah, do you know, whenever I feel like I'm in a rut, I will sit myself down and literally just write down all the ways that I can push myself out of my comfort zone.
I love that.
All the things that scare me. And I'm just like, Alyssa, get on and do one of those things right now. Like, you have to commit and do it, because there's something, it like honestly gives me so much energy. And it kind of like, exactly like you said, you get complacent and you're just doing the same things over and over again. And then when you start to push yourself out your comfort zone again, you're like, like, look at me go. Like, I can do these scary things. Like, actually I can achieve so much more. And it kind of, I always think like it expands what I believe is possible for me and gives me a fresh perspective on life. And then I can go on and achieve more and more and more. And I'm so with you on like being in a complacent job. And I don't think I would be where I am today if I'd have just stayed in those jobs that were like okay. Because when you stay in a job that's okay, there's not necessarily that push to actually don't go and do something different. I mean, you were like, no, come on, I've got to do something else. But definitely for me, it was ending up in a job that I absolutely hated, and almost similarly to you, being in a bit of a rock bottom moment that I thought, I've just got to change things. Things have got to change. And when I was in my okay jobs, they were good enough to not have as much of a desire to want to go and do something different and leave. And so I think for anyone, you know, listening or watching this, this is just a reminder to actually use those like rock bottom moments as an opportunity to learn and to get more clarity around what you do want to do, become curious about what else excites you, what else you enjoy, and go and explore it. And I think there's something so fun about taking the pressure off and allowing yourself to explore the things that you might want to do without it being this huge, this has to be the one thing. And
100%,
you know, because as soon as you start putting huge pressure on it, then the fear, doubt, like everything creeps in, and then next thing you know, you're just not doing anything.
Exactly. And also, like, if you put too much pressure on it, it almost becomes like a task. And you remove the play element of it. And you need to have, like, us human, you know, this adulting thing. I like the phrase, but I'm kind of like, we need to bring back like something to do with childhood. Yes. Right? So, you know, that feeling when you're a child where you're completely like stripped of any shame, any kind of worry that you're not going to be successful or worry that you're not going to achieve, and go to that state of just like, I'm just doing this for fun. I'm just doing this because I enjoy it.
I love that attitude. Yes.
Yeah, I think we should nurture that side of ourselves, like 100%.
Me too.
It's where the magic happens. It's where like you get the big revelations about yourself and, you know, what you should be doing next. And
yeah, that is one of like the biggest joys about having a dog is because I feel like it brings out my like childlike playfulness, because I'm chasing him around everywhere and you know, but also on my way here I was on the tube and this little boy, I don't know how old he was, maybe like 8 or something, anyway, he got off the tube and he was like, bye everyone. And I was like, oh, it made me so happy. And I was like, bye. And a few other people were too, and it's exactly what you've just said. It's this joy for life. And I think that is something I'm always coming back to. And for me, perspectives on life are really important. And one of the perspectives I have on life, similarly to you, is I want life, and I believe life can be and is fun and exciting, and you can be playful and it can be easy and enjoyable, right? And one of my clients once said to me, but what about all the hard moments? And for me, it's not about discounting the hard moments. You know, life is life. I can't exactly sit here and be like, there's never going to be hard moments. Of course, there are hard moments. And equally, I think for me, it's important to hold like there can be hard moments and life can be fun and enjoyable and exciting. Because me just constantly thinking life is really hard and there are hard moments, it doesn't serve me. It doesn't support me. And, you know, I'm getting all my coaching hat on now, but our thoughts impact how we feel, which impact our actions, which impact our outcomes. And so if we want to get specific outcomes, whether that's creating a business, whether that's going for promotion, whether that's putting yourself out there on social media, whatever it is, it all stems from your thoughts. And if you're coming from this place of everything is hard and everything is really difficult and everything is awful, then it's going to feel really hard to feel good about taking the action and getting the outcome that you want. So I'm always coming back to what is the perspective and thoughts that I want to have, whilst also acknowledging like, I'm human. I'm going to go into panic mode sometimes. I'm going to have a meltdown sometimes. And it is okay.
Absolutely. Oh my God, I love that so much. I really do. I think you've nailed so many good points there. But yeah, this playfulness and everything, it's not to, you know, be lighthearted about, you know, people's hardships or the hardships that you have in life. It is just to it's almost like claiming back that essence that you have, isn't it? As because you were that child, and that child is still in you. So
I love that.
you gotta love that child and give it a little bit of play occasionally. I think it's so important. Otherwise, it just gets too heavy because there's so many. And also, it's important to choose what you focus on, isn't it?
Definitely. This is making me think about creativity, and obviously you're in a creative role, and that's your business focus. I've worked with creative clients, and I know something they can struggle with is that confidence around being creative. And one particular client that I've been supporting has felt it challenging, like almost putting their ideas out there, because it can really feel like a part of them. And then if maybe it doesn't get received in the way that they want it to be received, then they can kind of sometimes feel like it's almost like personal attack on them. So I'm just curious how you've built that creative confidence, and whether that's something that you kind of like, do you feel like all those ideas are like a part of you, or are you able to have some distance?
Oh, it's really a good question. I think it's a tough one, because obviously it really depends on the type of like how you're living your creative practice. So some people might live it in a very personal way, and that might be really difficult when getting feedback on things that are just obviously ultimately is subjective, is a discipline that's subjective. Everyone will have their opinion and perspective. Can be very tough. But for me, what's been good, I guess, I've always had to struggle with imposter syndrome, because obviously I did not do art for my A-levels or my degree. It was kind of like something that I focused on after all that, the kind of like legit, not academic life, but the school life and all that stuff. So I've always had to struggle with imposter syndrome, and it took me a very long time to build my creative confidence. I think a good way that might just be to do with how I am, is I take feedback on the chin, and I'm used to. I've been raised in quite a critical environment, so I'm quite used to getting criticism. So that's something I welcome. Obviously, it has its ups and downs where it can it can make you very insecure, and then you'll find this validation externally, or however you want to find it. But for me, I think that my creative ideas, if I'm not having them, someone else will have them. So it's almost like I don't know which singer or songwriter, said this, but someone said that the music that they create is just in the ether, and if they don't grab it, someone else will grab it. So I think that for me, the ideas and the ideas that I have for projects, they're not mine. They're just something that if someone relates what I'm relating the same way, they'll have the same idea. So it's fine. It's okay. It's not. It's an idea that's outside of me. It's not something that's it's from me, but I don't find myself so important that I don't know how.
I'm getting it. Yeah, like it's there, and almost anyone could like connect those dots
exactly
and come up with the same or similar thing, rather than it being like a part of you. Like obviously you are the one to connect those dots and create it.
Yeah.
But it's almost a way of viewing it that doesn't feel as personal. Am I getting that right? Yeah.
Absolutely. You've nailed it. It's essentially a way of detaching myself from my ideas, I guess. And it's a protection. But also it's what I strongly, because I believe that everyone is creative. Anyone can have a creative career. Anyone can have creative ideas. So I'm very democratic about the creativity. I do believe that's how it works. But obviously, I'm not a fine artist, or it comes from different disciplines will have different ways of expressing it, and therefore it might be harder to take feedback or criticism. But yeah, it's a tough one. It takes a while to build up, overcome imposter syndrome and put yourself out there.
Yeah. And I think it's almost like a muscle. The more that you use it and the more that you get used to receiving the criticism, or I don't even necessarily like the word criticism, but like feedback, the more that then you can say, okay, like this is how I need to approach it. And I think a lot of the time it is the perspective that you take on it. And I love reminding myself that not everyone is going to like every single thing. It's like if I was choosing to go to a restaurant or go to a bar or date someone, I'm not going to want to date every single person. I'm not going to want to go to every single restaurant. There's going to be some restaurants that I'm like, don't like that type of food. And there's going to be, for some people, they love that type of food. And it's like, we can't like, and we don't need to like every single thing, but that doesn't take away from the person that I don't want to date or the restaurant, because there's going to be someone else who likes that person and wants to go and eat in that restaurant. So that's kind of a perspective that I like to take on it. And I always like to remind myself about, all the people who've been really successful and had their ideas like, shot down in the beginning, because I think very often, well, actually, let me say this in a different way, but it's like, I often think about the amount of people out there who could be incredibly successful in what they want to do, who could have the most amazing businesses, brands, offer services, like just do all these incredible things, but they don't do it because they get shot down once and then they're like, okay, well, it's never going to work. What's the point? Or like, this one person said it's not a good idea. Like, so what? Like, sometimes I think, let's say, I don't know, Beyonce, I'm sure some people are like, don't think she's a good singer. Yeah. Do you think she cares? No.
Absolutely.
Even if like thousands of people probably told her she wasn't a good singer, do you think she's going to care and stop? No.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
And I just think if you've got a passion for it, go for it, and don't feel like one person's opinion needs to be the reason that you don't go for things. It needs to be the reason that you feel like you can't be creative. And I love that you think everyone's creative, and I'm no kind of artist or anything like that, but I think creativity is quite like you can have this like childlike fun. And definitely in the beginning of the year I was like, I want to be more creative because I just find it fun and relaxing. And it's not that I need to go into these pressured situations of, oh my God, I've got to like create a masterpiece, and I'm definitely not going to be creating any masterpieces. But it's just about doing something for enjoyment. And I think there's something very like, I don't know what the energy is around creativity, but it feels good.
It feels really good. I think it's a human trait.
Yeah.
I really believe it's a human trait. I mean, 1,000% it is, because you can be very creative, and creativity can be applied on a lot of things, but essentially you're also problem solving with creativity. So, engineers are creative, and, people who make up, think of products or solutions for our day-to-day mundane tasks are creative. So I really believe that this is a human trait. And as such, as you say, of course, building resilience is super important for this career, because you have to, and you almost need to detach your, in design, you're normally dealing with people who will sign off your design. It's not, so you'll have like the marketing team, or, your clients, or business owner, whatever. And quite often you're kind of like, but you guys don't, I mean, your opinion is your opinion, but design is always collaboration as well, I think. And that really helps thinking of this process that way. It essentially means that you're co-creating. So if you start getting off the high horse of I'm the creator and understand that everyone is going to have their input, and that is fine, that is part of the design process, then then it's easy to detach yourself from any kind of feedback.
And you said resilience there, and I wanted to kind of go back to you being in all those part-time jobs, and I'm sure lots of people are in that position. They're trying to create the career that they want, whether it's work their way up or get into a specific career or create their own business. How did you stay motivated? And any tips for anyone listening?
That's such a good question. How did I stay motivated? I'm really stubborn. And as I said, I'm pretty resilient in terms of the way I learn and the way I live my life. It's always through failures and then kind of like learning them and okay, let's go to the next challenge. So I was always hopeful that I was going to get, and I always had a couple of things tight. I always had something on the go. And if I didn't have something on the go creative, I would make it up, literally, just to keep me going. I think that was essentially it. I was very, you just have to pursue what you like doing. And I knew I liked doing it. So there was just not other option for me. Otherwise I would just like carry on, have like a career in pubs or a career in vintage clothing or whatever I was doing at the time. It was always something that I could have pursued, but I just didn't. That was not where my heart was. So I had to carry on. Just couldn't stop.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I get that. Working at the FT then, which is obviously like a household name, how was that? And how did you work your way up to the role that you ended up in?
Oh, I was so excited when I joined. It was like, I'm big media powerhouse. I love the fact that they're an independent media outlet. So they're not owned by, they haven't got any affiliation with any parties or kind of like any kind of, they're very fact-based and data-led. So I love that side of it. So I was really excited. So when I joined, I was like this excited puppy, ready to go. I've always been really proactive, and I think that really served me well there. So as soon as I joined, I was always like asking my manager, how can I improve? What do I need to be doing to improve? Please, can I get feedback on this project? Please, can I, and any kind of like extra curricula, almost, extra things that were not even to do with my specific lane, I would go for them. Like as soon as I could, I joined the FT Women Committee because I was like, passionate about women empowerment, and like that, I was very active always. Also, when I joined as a senior designer, I was already in a managerial role, so I had like a couple of a designer and an art worker to manage, and that really motivated me to go, I can make this team bigger, and I can really do this piece of being a leader and build a team. And I think that was also like one of my strengths there, like the team building, motivating. So that was always, that was something I really enjoyed exploring. And so after that, I guess those were the key points, like proactiveness and sort of being good with people. I guess those are my key strengths, I would say.
Yeah. Being good with people is such a good skill to have.
Yeah.
I really think it helped me so much in my jobs.
Yeah.
Just being able to build relationships with people and being able to work well with people. I really think that helped me in my previous jobs. And I will say, I know it doesn't come naturally to everyone, but if it does come naturally to you, like, utilize it. And if it doesn't come naturally, just think about how you can just start to even just slowly build relationships with people and just become, I think part of it, building relationships with people, is just that curiosity piece and being interested in people and what they do, and asking people about their jobs and like, oh, what do you do in your finance role or whatever it is. People generally like to talk about themselves. So if you show a bit of curiosity, I think that is a really good, intro into building a relationship with someone.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that really helps, because you're giving people the space to kind of, showcase themselves and all that stuff. And yeah, people need that space, isn't it? And when you're working together, being someone that you're easy to work with and you're like flexible and you just like get on with things and be like a solutions person rather than a problems person, isn't it? That's always what they say. If you want a promotion, if you want to get far in like the corporate ladder, don't go to your manager like moaning and like go with like, I have an idea.
Yeah, exactly. I'm conscious of the time, but I want to talk to you a bit more about your business. Yeah. So how did it feel taking that leap?
So as I said before, I started as a side hustle, which was a very good way for me to do it, because obviously, I guess through my experience in life, I've always valued, once I had full times in the creative industry, I was like, right, I need to value this. So I stayed for a long time at the FT. I stayed for a long time, well, for a couple of years in my previous like full-time roles. So I was always conscious that it was something I had to protect. But so I had to like create this minimum viable proposition to test it, to see if there was the appetite to work, that I would have clients, that I would have work before I quit, before I did anything drastic. I'm not very good at realizing when I'm burning out or realizing when I'm overworking. So I think when I quit, I was completely burnt out. But yeah, it's I would advise people to do it before they get to that stage, because then it takes a while to recover. But I was grateful that it was a proposition that really worked. People were interested in getting me as their brand expert, their brand designer, to help with do their websites, everything. So I was like, ooh, there is appetite here. And obviously at the same time that I was dipping my toes with the side hustle, I was also like doing a lot of, putting myself out there, getting myself out of the comfort zone. So that was where I joined a lot of women networks, creative networks, and started building my network, which is, my community. I don't want to say network, my community now, which is, I would say, the most important part of this all, because without your community, you really don't stand a chance. And I've got really good friends from this community, and I'm really grateful. Basically, I'm still like pinching myself. This is happening, and this has happened, and that I'm able to work with brands and businesses and people who want to really make the world a better place, and that are doing it actively. So like the impact I have with my work now is my favorite bit of it. But the community is incredible.
I'm so happy for you. Honestly, that, the kind of like pinching yourself, I feel that so much. I'll just be, I don't know, doing something mundane around the house, and I'm like, I can't believe that this is, I can't quite believe this is my life. Like, I can't quite believe that I'm going for a walk at 11 a.m. and just, pottering around making my hot chocolate rather than actually sitting down and, being in some boring meeting or something. And I get so like passionate about this, and I feel like I can just, go on and on and on about it. I'm so happy that you're doing something that you love to do and that is really fulfilling you, and you feel like there's purpose behind it. And I just have such a belief that like people can get to where they want to get to and do what they want to do. And sometimes it's just about overcoming those, those blocks along the way, that whether it's fear, whether it's self-doubt, whether it's imposter syndrome, whether it's uncertainty, whether it's going against what's expected of you and what your parents think you should do, or maybe society thinks you should do. So this is just my encouragement to everyone to just get more clear on what you want to do, and just think about, almost like we were saying earlier, like thinking about that no pressure action and doing it in a way that feels enjoyable, doing it in a way that feels fun, and just start exploring some of these things. Because hopefully you can get to that moment where you're pinching yourself and you're like, I can't believe this is my life. Oh, that makes me so happy. My last question for you then, if someone's listening to this, if they feel really stuck, confused, lost with life, if they're just sitting there thinking like, what am I doing? What 3 pieces of advice would you give them?
Oh, okay. So first one is be kind to yourself, because I know that when you're going through those moments, it's so easy because our self-critic comes out and you're like, oh, you're rubbish, you're not doing well, and look at you should really, you need to be kind to yourself. So you need to tell that self-critic to, stop talking to you and go elsewhere. And you should do things that make you feel good and make you feel grounded in who you are. And that could be going for a walk every day in nature. That could be, going to do something that really nourishes your mind, your creativity. Go see a friend. Be kind to yourself. That's my first piece of advice. Then the second one is to do with play. I'd really encourage anyone who's in that position to try and explore, list of activities, go on. There's, we're really lucky. We live in a place where there's so many like events and workshops, and, you can do this online as well. So anywhere in the world, you can learn how to do a new skill. And go learn something new and learn something fun that you really want to have fun with. And then the third one I would say is take time to build your community. And I read this quote the other day, which is now on my vision board, which is surround yourself with people that feel like sunlight. And I love it because I think that's what you should be doing. You should don't be scared to, curate your community and your group of people with this kind of guiding principle that they need to make you feel good about yourself, and they need to make you feel supported and held, So those are my 3 pieces of advice, I would say.
Oh my gosh, I don't even want to add anything to those. I love those so much. Thank you so much. Honestly, it's been such a joy to hear about your journey, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a delight.
Thank you so much for listening to or watching this episode and for supporting the podcast. It honestly means the absolute world to me, and I want to spread the message that it is okay to not have everything figured out. No one really does. So I hope listening to this has helped you to feel less alone. 2 things that really help me spread this message are leaving a review and also sharing this episode with anyone you think that it might help. So if you are able to do that, honestly, I would appreciate it so much. Thank you so much. Have a lovely rest of your day. Take care, and I will see you soon.